In this section, we'll be focused primarily on special inspection. So we'll go over some definitions, also some areas of oversight that would apply for special inspection, some reporting templates that are going to be used, and then also some items that that the project inspector may be responsible for doing the special inspection as well. We'll start out with a few definitions for special inspection. Note that special inspection is going to be required when anytime that the work requires special expertise to inspect. The work is it's also going to be required whenever the work is carried out away from the project site when the project inspector wouldn't be able to do the inspection. And then also for critical lateral load resisting elements, so like moment frames or brace frames, that sort of thing. A special inspector is required as defined on the T&I list, the 103 form that we went over in a previous section. And also note that there are sometimes on-site special inspections that are going to be performed by the project inspector. So special inspection and a special inspector are sometimes two different things. So there may be many cases when the project inspector may or be required to perform the special inspection. In this slide, we'll help define the differences between continuous and periodic special inspection. But first, I want to point out that this issue for continuous versus periodic really only is applicable to special inspectors, not to project inspectors, since the PIs are expected to be on the site and continuously inspecting all aspects of the project at all times. So for continuous special inspection, that's going to be performed full-time when the work is being done. But there's some other cases where periodic special inspection may be adequate. And it would be performed part-time where the work is or has been done and upon completion. So there will be some cases on the 103 form that indicate when periodic can be done, and usually it just is on items that can be easily verified before or after the work is done. Otherwise, continuous special inspection is generally going to be required. I do want to emphasize that periodic special inspection does not mean intermittent inspection. Even if it's periodic, all aspects of the construction still need to be inspected even when periodic special inspection is identified and permitted. Also, the special masonry inspector must inspect at least once for every course during layup. So that really ends up being pretty much the same as continuous inspection anyway. This slide might be overdoing it a bit, but the point is to make sure that it's clear that for the special inspector, the responsibilities are to inspect all of the work. So again, even if it's periodic, that doesn't mean that you can do intermittently or only portions or representative samples of the work to be inspected. All materials are verified, all work must be inspected, and the only difference for periodic is the timing, whether it's before or after the actual work of the inspection as opposed to while the work is happening. The next few slides provide some areas of oversight of the special inspector that should be done by the project inspector. So the PI needs to verify that their qualified special inspectors have been provided for all work indicated on the T&I list. So if there's ever a case where a special inspector is not provided, go ahead and write a deviation notice. I need to make sure that the contractor is advised to wait for a special inspector. We want to make sure that that SI is available and provided before the work commences. Also, the PI needs to verify that the special inspectors are approved by DSA when required, so for masonry, shotcrete, etc. And the PI should also verify that the special inspectors have appropriate certification and experience. So if you recall, the SIs can either be part of the lab program or provided by the labs, or they could be independently contracted through the school district. But in either case, we want the PI to make sure that the SIs do have the required certification and experience for the work that they're going to be inspecting. The project inspector also needs to verify that a single individual special inspector inspects all the work when possible. So we always want to encourage the test lab to provide the same individual for all special inspections of each type of work. For example, welding, we'd want to have the same person doing all the inspection for the welding throughout. Because dividing the responsibility for one type of special inspection between several individuals is really not what the code was intending in that regard. Also, replacement special inspectors, we would ask the project inspector to verify that they've all been approved by DSA. Also, the PI needs to verify that all relevant work is covered in the special inspection reports. You can refer to DSA IR 17-12 for special inspection reporting requirements. The PI needs to verify that all work requiring special inspection is actually inspected, and when the responsibility is shared, which individual is responsible for each part. And then work done off-site needs to be appropriately tagged or marked off by the special inspector. The PI also needs to verify that the special inspectors have a copy of the DSA approved construction documents. You need to verify that on-site and off-site special inspectors have and base their work on all of the DSA approved documents. A lot of times you'll see inspectors using shop drawings, but those are not the DSA approved documents, and they shall not be used as the basis for acceptance of work. Also, special inspectors should not be sharing the contractor's sets of drawings or the project inspectors. They need to have their own. It's not acceptable for the special inspectors' drawings to be kept at the test lab. They need to be readily available where the work is being done. And any changes to the DSA approved documents need to be stamped and approved by DSA, and the special inspector needs to be on top of that as well. So nothing that deviates from the DSA approved documents can be changed or accepted without DSA concurrence. Also, the PI needs to verify that the special inspectors have their appropriate equipment for the work that they're inspecting. And the special inspectors also need to be familiar with all of the applicable reference documents. So Title 24, Part 1, the Admin Code, Chapter 4, there's a lot of items in there. All of the DSA approved documents that we went over, including any of the changes. And then also the relevant technical code requirements that may be relevant to the work being inspected. And also, lastly, the industry standards for the specific required special inspection activities. So the PI needs to verify that the special inspector has all of that information. The project inspector is also responsible for verifying that SIs perform thorough inspections, and that also that the SIs document all inspections and provide detailed daily reports as noted in IR 17-12. Also, the special inspectors need to submit reports, particularly indicating non-conforming construction immediately. They should also provide conforming daily reports to the architect and the structural engineer within 7 days of such special inspections. And note that any work that's pending DSA approval, so in a CCD, whatnot, that needs to be indicated as a deviation on the reports if the contractor proceeds prior to getting DSA approval. Also, responses to RFIs shall not cause the special inspector to deviate from the DSA approved documents. So we rely on the project inspector to make sure that those items have been approved before the work is done and inspected. So here's a sample special inspection report template. I'll just point out a few things. I'll start at the top right and work my way around counterclockwise. It does need to include the correct DSA file number and application number for tracking the project and making sure we know which one this report applies to. The report needs to be addressed to the school district and also reference the DSA approved drawings. It also needs to include a narrative description of the work inspected and state that the work was inspected as required. It also needs to be signed by the special inspector on a daily basis and needs to be copied to the architect, structural engineer, project inspector, as well as DSA. And lastly, it needs to state that the work met the required criteria, whether it's conforming or non-conforming. A lot of these forms can be found in the Administrative Resources tab that's included as part of this course. And then also, of course, these can be found on the DSA website. And again, this is just a template. It's not a mandatory form. It's not like the verified reports 291, 292, and 293 that are mandatory and have to follow that format. As I mentioned before, there's some cases when the project inspector may be the ones doing the special inspection. So they can personally perform many special inspections, including the following items. Structural wood framing, such as high load diaphragms, that's going to be per 1705A.5.1. Also, on-site installation of bracing for metal plate connected wood trusses. It's going to be permanent for truss heights over 60 inches depth. And then also temporary bracing for truss spans greater than 60 feet. And that's per 1705A.5.2. And then structural wood for wind resistance and seismic resistance per these two sections noted here. Also concrete pre-placement and placement, cold form steel light framing, except welding and fabrication. When it's done for wind resistance can be done by the PI. And then also for seismic resistance as well. Architectural component anchorage, again, is another item that can be done by the, especially inspected by the project inspector. So the project inspector has been performing these inspections. It's kind of been traditional practice. They're now considered to be special inspections, but DSA didn't change the way that they're done and require special inspections. So this is just industry practice for these particular types of items that are typically just done by the project inspector. Here are some additional items the project inspector may be performing special inspections. Access floors and storage racks. Again, refer to the code sections on the slide here to refer to the code where these are called out. Also, MEP component installation and anchorage for seismic resistance. Also, EFIS, the exterior insulation and finish systems, as well as fire resistant penetrations and joints. I want to note that most of the special inspections that are performed by the PI are not listed on the T&I list on the 103 form. Since the project inspector is responsible for inspecting all the work anyway, it wasn't really necessary to include each of these items on the T&I list. All inspections by the project inspector must be performed continuously, and that's because of the way it's defined in the admin code section 4-342 B1. This supersedes chapter 17A that allows periodic special inspection for special inspectors, but this never applies to the PI because the PI is required to continuously inspect all aspects of the project. So that concludes the presentation for the Test and Inspection Chapter 17A module for the Project Inspector Overview Training. I just want to thank you for taking the time to go through this section. Again, my name is Ryan Turner, a District Structural Engineer with DSA. If you have any questions, please feel free to send them over to DSA and we'll make sure to get those answered for you as soon as possible. Thank you.